Hello you beautiful people and welcome back to another episode of the Nige-Rider Garage. In this episode we're going to attempt to paint the centre stand and side stand mounting. Hello there you beautiful people, and yes, as I said, we're going to attempt to paint this side stand and centre stand mounting. Now when I say attempt, what you've got to bear in mind, it's actually the middle of November or thereabouts, and it's not particularly warm. I've actually bought a thermometer. I'm not sure if you can see this, but according to this it is about 15, something like probably 15 degrees centigrade. And if you work in the American money, it's about 40, I don't know, 49, about 49 Fahrenheit. So it's not particularly warm. Now, what I've done is I've constructed this lovely little grow house and turned it into a little paint booth. And it does work. I have actually done this before, but I had a bit of a problem with the paint can. I dropped it, I smashed the nozzle, and it exploded everywhere, which meant that I had to restart again. Now, standing here, what you don't realise is I can feel a lot of heat coming out of this, and if I just stand here waving this around, it starts to actually, you can feel the heat. And if I put the thermometer about here, it's actually going up. We're at about 20 degrees centigrade now, and it is still climbing. If I put it inside, which is where I want it to be, we're going up. We're almost at a nice temperature, almost about 30 degrees, and it is still climbing. So it's a pretty nice warm environment inside the actual grow house. Now, before I get painting this, don't forget guys, if you like my videos, give them a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on any notifications. I am using a etch primer for this. The reason I'm using an etch primer is because it's got some acid in there to give it a better base coat and for it to stick a little bit better to the actual aluminium, basically because of the temperature, etc, etc. The other reason is it does actually form a nicer bond. Okay, and in between each coat we are going to be waiting about 15 minutes before applying the other coat. And what I'm going to do is take the primer inside the house and keep it at room temperature whilst doing that. While I'm here, it's at a nice temperature because I'm actually directly outside. So the first coat is going to be very much a dust coat. And for those of you notice, I don't know, it's called, if it's Holtz, I think it's Holtz. It's called a can gun 1, which just slots onto these cans and turns them into like a paint sprayer, as you would get in a professional paint booth. Right, so I've been shaking this, the can's rattling quite nicely. I'm just going to spray over there a little bit. It's nice and ventilated, and we are now spraying the first coat. Okay, so that's coat number 1 done. So what we're going to do now is come back in 15 minutes after it's in left there and apply another coat. And as I say, in that meantime, I'm going to take this inside and keep it warm. See you in a second, or 15 minutes, come to that matter. I've actually put on 3 coats of primer. Now, the amount of coats of primer you put on is personally a personal choice, depending on what you're going to do. Obviously, if you want to build it up. Also, it depends on what kind of finish you're looking at, and the condition of the material that you're actually priming. So obviously, if you've got a lot of dents, a lot of scratches and stuff like that you're trying to cover, and you're using a high build primer, then obviously you'd put a lot more coats on to flatten it down to give you a nice smooth surface, so it actually takes those imperfections out. Now obviously for me, this is the centre stand mounted with bolts underneath, so I'm not overly fussed on the finish. Which is why after I've put this coat of primer on, which is going to be the 4th coat of primer, I'm actually going to move to painting it as opposed to waiting until it's fully cured and then flattening it down and painting it. I don't actually want to do that because, as I said, I'm not overly fussed on the actual outcome in the respect of the finish. It will still be a nice finish. It's not going to be like a nice, smooth, shiny finish that you would get, say, on the top of a car, you know, the bonnet or the fairings. If this was a plastic fairing that was going to be somewhere where it's going to be visible, then that would be a different matter. I would actually wait until that was cured, flat it down, and then repaint it. Or should I say, I would then paint it. I would then put the top coat on, because then it would give me a nice smooth surface to work from, which I could then make even smoother and maybe a glass finish. But as this is underneath, as I'm painting it in some high temperature paint, I'm not particularly fussed too much in the look. Or when I say the look, I'm talking about the finish. If you've got any questions about that, feel free to ask, and if you're interested, I will do another video if you want about what I talk about when I say finish in respect to paint finishing. So as I said, this is the last coat, and then it's going to be another 15 minutes, and then I shall put on the actual black paint that I'm intending to use. Now here's a trick for you. If you turn your can upside down when you're finished, it stops paint from drying inside the nozzle. So that's the priming done. I've done the priming. Now what I want to do is paint it, and it's turning out quite nice actually, looking at this so far. It looks like it's working. Won't know really until I actually get the black on and check the black out later, but everything else seems to work. I've not set myself on fire or blown anything else up, and not sure if you can hear, but it's actually raining at the moment, and usually that's a bad thing when you're painting. So this is turning out great, which is giving me an idea for something larger, which I can try later on when I look at painting probably my fairing. But again, that's for another project. But as I say, this it gives me an idea in that aspect. So I shall leave this for 15 minutes, and I should be back with the black paint. So as I said, 15 minutes have gone past. I've got 4 coats of primer on there, and I'm going to use some very high temperature paint, because obviously that bolts to the engine, and if I put normal paint on there, it could get affected by the heat. So I'm actually going to paint it with some high temperature paint. Make sure I'm getting my nozzle in the right place. Give it a quick shake as well, make sure everything's fine. I'm doing a dusting process the same as I did before with the primer. And again, it's a case of 15 minutes between each coat. Now, the other thing I've got to be careful is, this hasn't fully cured. There's only been 15 minutes between coats. So, potentially, you can paint like this. There's no reason why you can't at all. Because that primer is still wet, so it will key to it quite nicely, and it will make a nice bond. But there also could be the potential of it actually reacting, so the paint could react with the primer by doing it this way, and that's one of the risks you have to be aware of if you're going to do it this way. If that happens, then what I'll do is I will probably end the video there if it reacts, and then I will wait until that's cured. I'll do a wet flat down of the actual mounting using the black as a guide coat, and then I will come back and repaint it, because then there should be no reaction. So let's see what happens. Make sure it's still nice and shook. Test it, and there we go. Okay, that should be good for the first coat, so it's going to be 15 minutes. I'll probably put maybe 4 coats on the same. I'll see what it looks like after I've done probably the second or third coat. So we're going to wait 15 minutes now, I'll come back and put another coat on. And in the meantime, I'm taking this back inside the house to keep it warm. Okay, so we're back in the Nige-Rider boudoir. As you can see, I have my chest of drawers over this side. And if you've seen my videos before, you know that this is the wet flatting area. And the reason why I'm here is because it did react. Yes. Now, this is a common problem, and this can happen. This is because the primer's an etch primer, so it wasn't quite as dry as what I needed it to be in order for it to work, and basically it has reacted, and we've got this kind of crazy paving effect here. And there. Okay, so that's where it's kind of reacted. And if I move my hand, you'll see we have a visitor who's just paid us a visit. He's after something, so there we go. So yeah, so otherwise it's worked quite well actually. It's done a very good job. Now this is a matte finish, as you can see. But what I need to do now is obviously I'm going to need to flat this down. I may need to take it quite a way down actually to get rid of this crazy paving. and then repaint it again. So I'm going to say goodbye from here, so I can get this flatted down and repainted, and I will show you it once it's been repainted. At the same time, probably do it when I'm doing the side stand and the centre stand, because obviously I need to give them a paint. So anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. As I said, if you like the videos, give them a thumbs up. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and don't forget to hit your subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next video. So it's arrivederci from me, and it's arrivederci from my crazy paving, yeah, and Mars, who's just happened to pop up and join us on the bed there. So I'll catch you later.